You're in the forest. Be extra careful, okay?
An evangelical preacher who cultivated a small following that believed themselves to be born-again hippies got together one day in a small coffee house at Huntington Beach, located in Orange County, California. The preacher's name was David Berg, who had a long history of religious preaching. Born in 1919 to two Christian evangelist parents, David would travel with them while they conducted independent missionary work and often relied on the kindness of others to support them financially. This frugal and sparing existence that David would deal with in his younger years would seep into his future beliefs regarding the cult he would create, or that's at least his reasoning for it. In 1969, he would continue to further increase his influence among the group until he would eventually be hit with a revelation of sorts. He would tell his followers that California would be hit by a major earthquake, prompting the group, including David, to leave Huntington Beach and go on the road. Members would hand out pamphlets on the streets, hoping to recruit as many people as they could. As they moved and spread out across various states and cities, they'd form colonies or communes for the children of God. Though, because this was back in the day before email, texting, and easy-to-make phone calls, it would be way harder to communicate to all of his followers across the United States, so he would send letters handwritten by himself to the communities. These letters would be called Mo letters, and roughly 3,000 would be sent over a time span of 24 years. He told his followers that he believed himself to be God's prophet, which of course they all believed, having been heavily influenced by his beliefs over the years. An odd thing happened in 1972 that could have been completely unintentional. Okay, this is amazing. A Mo letter titled "Flee as a Bird to Your Mountain" was misinterpreted by a number of those involved in the cult as a calling to get out of America. For some reason, these select individuals came to the grand conclusion that God was going to destroy America, so they came to the only possible solution: run away. Members would migrate across the world in Europe, Latin America, and East Asia. As you could imagine, this only grew the reach and overall number of those in the cult. Later that year, it would be stated by those in the cult that they had 130 communities globally. And just a few years later, they would have influence in about 70 countries around the world. There were 10,000 full-time members just in the 1970s, which is massive for a time with no cell phones or social media, just hardcore belief, word of mouth, and letters. Although soon there would be one very unethical and controversial way they turned to in order to try and convert strangers.
After you're gone, oh Dad, it's gonna break my heart. The love you've shown to me. After reading your letters, the first thing I thought was, Dad, I don't want you to leave. And yes, we promise that we'll carry it on. At least we'll try with all of our heart. But before you go, we just want you to know, oh Dad, we're gonna carry it on.
Flirty fishing, a term that came to be extremely familiar among members over the next decade of the cult's existence. It would define a new method that female members within the cult would use to convert possible new members. David said that it was showing God's love through sexual relationships. The original name of the cult, the Children of God, was abolished and renamed later into the Family of Love. It seemed as though David Berg wanted to move the cult into a new era, one involving lots of flirty fishing and other disgusting acts. However, Berg dismissed 300 leading members at the start of this reorganization period for reasons of misconduct and abuse of their positions. This could have been an attempt to save his standing in the group, because around this time, accusations of abusing and minors in this organization began to surface. There weren't exactly baseless claims either, as there was plenty of evidence for it. Only 1/8 of the entire cult left around this time. After this, Berg pushed for more expansion and flirty fishing. It seemed as if nothing was off limits, because some women that would partake in it would contact escort agencies to meet future converts. The cult stated that there was a grand total of roughly 100,000 converts as a result of the flirty fishing. And after the previous accusations that had many flee at the time, the group said they wanted to take further precautions to protect the children. A message was sent to every community that was meant to remind people that contact between an adult and child would result in immediate exile from the group. In another attempt to restart or rebrand the movement, the cult was renamed again to the Family. In the early 90s, the Family wanted to prove themselves as not as bad as the public believed they were by inviting media officials and reporters to conduct interviews and written pieces on what they saw. Of course, assuming the group did everything they could to be on their best behavior, the pieces all described them as friendly and courteous. When David Berg died in 1994, his then wife Karen Zerby took over leading the Family. A rights and responsibilities list for the cult was introduced, which was renamed the Love Charter. In a British court case, it was ruled that some members, including some of the top leaders within it, had previously engaged in abusive activities involving minors and used extreme corporal punishment, aka physical beatings of minors. Though it was also found that by 1995, the cult had left those practices behind, and they were a safe environment for children. In my opinion, it seems ridiculous that a known cult, engaging in these disgusting acts for years and years, just up and quits one day, becoming a perfectly safe place for all kids. Anyways, for one last time, the cult was renamed to the Family International, which is what it is still known by today. For those of you who have heard about the cult before, you most likely already know of the celebrities that grew up or were involved in the cult before leaving. Actress Rose McGowan, Jeremy Spencer, that was once in Fleetwood Mac, Joaquin Phoenix, and the late River Phoenix, rest in peace. Though a tragic tale of one Ricky Rodriguez shows proof of the extreme abuse that took place behind the walls of the organization.
Well, hey everyone. This is Rick, and I'm making this video, well, for many reasons, I guess. I suppose the main reason is that I want there to be some record of the way I feel, my ideas, just who I was, really.
One day in 1974, the wife of David Berg and today's current leader of the cult, Karen Zerby, would flirty fish with a Spanish hotel waiter, hoping to convert him into the Family. Roughly 9 months later, Ricky Rodriguez would be born, and David Berg would soon unofficially adopt him. Over time, Berg would give Ricky a prince and prophet type of status, saying that he would, and I quote, "call down fire from heaven and devour their enemies," whatever that means. Ricky was quite clearly uncomfortable and quiet in the group because of the way others and his own parents treated him. It's important to note that his parents also gave him the nickname Deverito early in his life. Ricky, from an extremely young age, was exposed to the flirty fishing type of lifestyle his parents surrounded him with. At just 10 months old, his parents asked one of his nannies to start the Deverito book, also known as the Story of Deverito, which would document and picture the disgusting interactions of you-know-what between Ricky and other adults. Yeah, vile, actually evil. These documents, totaling 762 pages, would be sent out to cult members in pamphlets titled the Deverito Letters. It was said by a member that Ricky had been abused by most, if not all, of the adult women in the cult. And yes, even his own mother, and when he was just 12. The same lady that's still in control of the cult today. Yeah. Berg called all of it a type of training for him to eventually take over as leader of the cult. It's so disgusting, man. Later, he would try his best to erase and delete all evidence of these letters, though thankfully, former members still had access via email, which helped law enforcement make some kind of case against him later down the line. At 21 years old, Ricky would tell his mother, Karen Zerby, that he was going to one of the cult's compounds out in Mexico, though he actually flew to California and stayed at a non-profit care facility for some time. He scratched up some money and met his girlfriend back in Tacoma, Washington. Shout out to Tacoma, I actually live near there, and I give my sincerest condolences to anyone living in that city. Seriously, I feel so sorry for you. Anyways, Ricky and Alicia, his girlfriend, would marry and live a somewhat normal life outside of the cult. Sadly though, according to Alicia, Ricky had always felt guilt after hearing stories of the abuse that would happen within the cult to other members. He felt he, as an unwilling high member figure being the prophet, contributed to that abuse. In the early 2000s, he began posting about the abuse he experienced and told the public about his parents, mentioning how he wanted justice. He also called for others like him who had nothing to lose to plot for revenge. At this point, Ricky was advised by a friend to take legal action against them, though he had other plans. He wanted to find his mother, Karen Zerby, first. According to his girlfriend Alicia, Ricky had spent years trying to find his mother. Zerby and the rest of the family began using pseudonyms in an attempt to hide from his search. He was also trying his best to find Techi, his half-sister, so that he could get her out of the cult. Ricky and Alicia would break up, but still talk regularly. Ricky would learn that one of his old abusers, Angela Smith, was part of a nursing home run by Ricky's grandparents in Tucson, Arizona. Not only that, but Zerby and his sister Techi visited recently, so he assumed they might come back. He got a job as an electrician and would wait. On January 7th of 2005, Ricky would record a videotape of him talking about his own thoughts of suicide, revenge, and being a vigilante. He had various weapons in the room, blatantly stating he intended to use them for torture. Ricky made it clear that he intended no harm to come to any law enforcement and was strictly after his abusers. He sent the tape to Alicia, 2 of his family members, and another friend of his. The videotape of Ricky is still online, and even on YouTube right now if you are interested in watching it. The next day, Ricky would invite Angela Smith to his apartment for dinner and stabbed her multiple times before slitting her throat. He would then leave, driving to Blythe, California, where he would rent a motel room and call his family members to tell them of the body. He would then call Alicia to tell her that he did what he did to avenge those still in the cult being abused. Ricky said that killing Angela Smith was the hardest thing he ever had to do. Even when she was bleeding out, he said that she had no idea what she did wrong. He then pleaded for Alicia to commit suicide alongside him, though she obviously refused. Soon after, Ricky would kill himself there in his car. Former members began to speak about their experiences online and reveal that they also dealt with the same type of abuse that Ricky spoke and wrote about. But of course, Karen Zerby denied all of these allegations and continued to lie about what really happened, urging others to ignore it all. She explained that the reporters were trying to make Ricky look like a hero, and he himself was overcome by the enemy and forces of darkness. Yeah, I'm hoping that a lot of members involved in the cult around this time could also see through her BS and left. Though of course, from the title you already know that the cult is still up and running today, and Karen Zerby, even after everything, remains the leader. Following the public outing and exposing of all the things the cult had done in the past, a reboot was soon underway. This included completely destroying many of the core beliefs that were once widely followed. TFI, the Family International, seemed as though they were moving into a direction that more closely resembled traditional Christian practices. Around this time, many members ended up leaving and heading back to wherever they were prior to joining the cult. They felt like their entire way of life was being upended and changed, so they felt like they didn't belong there anymore. The households they once shared communally were being changed in this reboot, which added to the hardship of sorts they faced. Something that wasn't exactly expected also occurred, where these members that spent most years of their life within the cult practicing their ideologies and ways of life would have a really hard time fitting back into normal society. After this entire reboot and restructuring was finished, a large chunk of the cult had left, leaving behind a small portion of what once was a large cult with communities living all across the world. TFI has a relatively large online presence today, with a YouTube channel and even their own website. The channel has 17 videos on religious teaching, a music performance, and other things about the cult. It's so disturbing watching these videos, seeing people of all ages, whether it be a child or an old couple, taking part in the activities recorded in them. The website looks like it was created in 2010 and never updated again. It's weird. I mean, just being on it, I feel like I have 10 cult members with long black robes watching me through my computer camera. Hell, it looks like something you would expect to see on the deep web. I mean, come on. Anyways, they have links to various religious-themed stories, poems, music, and devotionals. Most, if not all of these, focus on Christmas, which I guess makes sense, given the fact they're mostly Orthodox Christian, or so they say. I will say it makes it much creepier with our given knowledge of the abuse children used to face back then, and seeing children in almost every picture on the website. The Family International today is still run by Karen Zerby and her new husband, Steve Kelly. It is shocking Zerby isn't in prison after the things she's done. From what I've found, it might have something to do with how bad the statute of limitations used to be in her area and surrounding the things she's been exposed for. It's actually sad knowing the abuse she enabled and terrible things she subjected members of the cult, including her own son, to. All we can hope is that none of what used to happen in that cult still occurs today. With the further introduction of phones and technology into society as the cult rebooted, it would be much easier to record any wrongdoings, though it's hard to believe that one of the worst and most disgusting cults in recent history can do a complete 180 and become pure over the course of just a couple years.